So hi Patrick, James, thank you so much for making it to this interview. I really appreciate it a lot.
Of course.
So, so I would love to ask you some few questions relating the DevRel career path, and I'm so excited about it. So, first of all, I would love you to tell me a little bit about yourself and your role as a DevRel professional.
Okay, so I don't come from traditional means. I'm a self-taught developer. I started, learning software engineering back in 2016, and I kind of found my way into Web3 right about 2020 at that time. And I used to be a educator for medicine. I used to teach combat medicine specifically. Kind of a strange topic, but I had a lot of love and passion for teaching medicine, and I really enjoyed it. And I had a mentor once tell me that as a medic, you can save 1,000 lives, but as a medical educator, and a good one, you can save millions. And so I really took that to heart and thought that with education that there's a lot that you can get accomplished. So with DevRel, it's kind of the same thing. As an engineer, you can build 1, 2, 5, 10 decent applications. But as a really good DevRel, you could build hundreds of really solid applications through teaching others how to develop with different tools. So it was back in 2022, or maybe late 2021, I joined Developer DAO and started participating in hackathons, creating content, writing articles there. Won a couple hackathons, and then I ended up taking a few jobs as a DevRel. Really enjoyed it and fell in love with it, and found myself into an Arweave as the lead DevRel. This last January is when I started.
Wow, that's amazing. So, what initially drew you into the DevRel field?
Say that one more time.
What exactly drew you into the DevRel field? Like, what gave you the inspiration to go into the DevRel field?
Oh, like the inspiration behind becoming DevRel?
Yeah.
Yes. Majorly just has to do with the fact that I love educating. I love helping people build, and but I also enjoy the part where I get to kind of be in front of people and educate them, and that part takes a bit of a little bit of an extroverted personality, and so I kind of enjoy the balance of being extroverted at times, but also introverted as an engineer, and kind of going back and forth. So it's a nice, happy balance for me.
Wow, that's really amazing. So, what was your educational background or previous experience that helped you into transitioning to the field?
Yeah, so almost none. All my education background comes from either the military or through teaching medicine overseas, and
Wow.
and so, but as far as an engineer goes, I'm mostly self-taught. I have never taken any certified courses or anything like that. I've never been in a classroom for software engineering or anything like that.
Wow.
Pretty much 100% self-taught.
Wow. So, how long have you been a dev? Because some people actually say that you have to be a developer before getting into a DevRel. So I would love to ask, so you actually a dev before getting into a DevRel?
It depends. Well, to answer that question, it depends on what are you really working for, like what is the product you're working for, and then what is your role as a DevRel. So I was a software engineer, really, to be honest, like a full stack software engineer. I really could say I've been one for about 5 or 6 years, and most of it was working freelance. I never really worked for a company in Web 2 or anything like that before. Before that, I've worked at a couple, worked at several Web 3 companies, and that's about it. And so I think depending on what your role is as a DevRel, it is important for you to be an engineer because maybe your role is to help other engineers, get through some of the issues that they may be having with building with your product or anything like that. And that's going to be very important to be a good engineer for that. But the flip side is like maybe you are, there is an aspect to developer relations where your entire job is to make sure that certain engineers are getting connected with the right people within your ecosystem or right people within your product so that they can get, overcome the issues or find solutions to the problems they're having. So, I mean, it really depends. For me, I would say having engineer experience is almost a must. Outside of not having any engineer experience, you're really not a DevRel. You kind of become a developer evangelist, which is kind of the same thing. But you spend more time focusing on helping them get through their issues and developing content and stuff like that educate developers in what's going on inside of the ecosystem, but you're really not on the technical side. So it's more developer evangelism rather than developer, relations.
That's really nice. That's really nice. So, were there any specific mentors or resources that were helpful on your DevRel journey?
Yeah. So, I had, it's not really moving into DevRel, but I had a mentor back when I was in private security and things, and he's the one that told me about teaching. Being able to teach rather than to do. You can put an impression on more lives that way. So that was a big mentor for me. I would have to say the developer DAO community is kind of like a ecosystem of guys and girls just really, mentoring each other. I look for advice from, some of the top people in developer DAO, like, Billy Jitsu, Coding with Manny, P. Billingsby. These are all guys that are in the DevRel space, and I've learned a lot from each and every one of them. But the ones that are not in the developer are in the developer relations space. There's another Manny, and Manny's more like a partnership relations and things like that. He's more on the sales side. I've learned a ton about the Web3 ecosystem and everything from him. So, I mean, those are really, really big mentors and close friends of mine. Lastly, I was part of cohort 1 for DevRel Uni. And so being in part of the first cohort, I remember all of the mentors or the instructors for cohort 1. And I'd have to say the most impactful was Nader David. He had a talk on that was comparing DevRels to bridge builders. And that's been cemented on my mind, and I've really, always taken that approach as a DevRel.
Wow, that's really nice. So, for someone who is like not really into the DevRel space like that, probably just trying to build a community and mentor people, do you think that's a nice way of getting started as a DevRel? Just the way we have developers DAO, but the only difference is that in this community, more of like mentorship, find opportunities to learn more about the developer space. Is that like a nice way of getting to it over?
So what you're saying is like in not necessarily like developer DAO, but in a community that you're part of, helping, other engineers and everything build or get connected with, other projects. Is that much like a DevRel role? Am I understanding that question?
Yeah, it's more of like if that's a way of getting started and that's the right direction.
So to get started as a DevRel, maybe like a role that came before DevRel would be, I think a community manager would be an excellent start. But at the same time, for me, I would say, instead of looking towards like what is a role that's like a stepping stone to DevRel, I would say, don't take any steps, just go into DevRel and look for more of like a junior DevRel, role more so than, like maybe a community management role or anything like that. Now, I mean, a community management role can definitely, help you with having an excellent background towards becoming a DevRel. But if I were to look at applications myself, and I were to see a community manager that put together some decent content, and was working, as a community manager for these different communities, and then I had another application that was an engineer, and that engineer had some decent content that they had put together, I'm probably going to take the engineer. And the reason why is because most of the time I'm having to deal with very technical issues, or they themselves will end up having to take care of technical issues. And so it's because of that I want to make sure that they are prepared for that, because if there's a engineer that just has a hard time putting together content and has a hard time, maybe creating videos, maybe creating articles, a lot of that can be taught, depending on, the personality. A lot of that can be taught. But a community manager that puts together good content, it's a lot harder to teach them how to handle technical issues rather than, having them just create content and so on. So I would, in my opinion, I think getting somebody that's more on the technical side and teaching them more of the developer relations aspects is a lot easier than taking a community manager and trying to make them more technical. So if I were to say, if you were to go for a role or anything, don't try to go into community management right away, unless that's, one of the few options you have. I would try to get a junior developer relations role, or even just a developer relations role where you're a DevRel on a team of DevRels, so you can learn from other DevRels.
That's really cool. So, can you walk me through a typical day or week for you as a DevRel professional?
An average week?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think I've ever had one week that is the same as another week. The DevRel role is constantly changing. But I can give you a little bit of, maybe I just look at my own calendar so I can give you a little bit of like what it would look like. But here we go. So this morning, and it's Monday morning. The first thing I did was I actually taught a webinar for an Arweave community in the Philippines. So it was kind of an early morning because they're on the opposite side of the world from me. And then I actually did a similar call to this with Saul Garcia, who's also a cohort member with you. And then I met immediately after that. I met with one of the developers where they're building out a product inside of our ecosystem. So I met with them to kind of help them overcome some issues and stuff like that. And then immediately after that was a comms meeting. Comms and marketing is, what can we do to really have that outbound style of content that can bring more engineers in, or maybe, more people that are interested in building inside of the Arweave ecosystem. And from there, you are my last meeting after that. So now I'm meeting with you. But then the next day, I did forget. In between meetings today, I did shoot a tutorial video on how to do a deposit and receive a token allocation. So I did a video tutorial, edited it, and sent that over to the marketing team. So that's kind of a typical day for me, I would say. But it changes a lot where, some days I'll be teaching webinars. Some days I'll just be recording. Sometimes I'm writing articles. Sometimes I'm reviewing PRs inside of the documentation. Sometimes I'm meeting with founders to help them overcome some of their issues. Sometimes I am meeting with other projects that are actively, built and growing, things like that inside the ecosystem, is seeing how we can collaborate. So Yeah, there's a lot of different things that I could be doing. Building starter kits, all kinds of stuff. Every single day is different, and so the biggest thing is just making sure that you understand what things take priority and when you can, push those things forward, and then start working on some of the other things like starter kits and stuff like that that aren't necessarily as important, but maybe those things are more important to your team. It just depends. So having clear communication with your team is really, really, really helps with understanding if you're constantly, producing good work for your company.
So initially, I would just say that being a developer actually means relating with different people, because for what you said now, it means that you're relating with different people. Wow.
So the role of DevRel, a lot of people say that DevRel differs depending on what company you're with. What are you going to do as a DevRel depending on what company you're with? But in my opinion, it depends on the size of the team is when really things get different. So if you are a DevRel on a team of DevRels, then maybe your sole focus is creating videos, or maybe your sole focus is reviewing PRs and keeping and maintaining documentation. Maybe your sole purpose is meeting with the higher end engineers because you're more technical and you can help them through some of their issues. Maybe your whole thing is hosting hackathons and things like that. That's like working on a team of DevRels. But if you're a solo DevRel, then pretty much all of that falls on you, and all of that falls under the developer relations, because your entire thing is to you're a little bit of control of the outbound and inbound information as to what is interesting to developers and bringing them to work on build on your protocol or on your project, and then also converting them into actually building something, and then the retention, continuously supporting them so that they feel like they're supported, they're getting the support they need, and they want to continue building on that project because they feel supported. So it's a lot of different layers there. So there's a lot of things that happen. It's a lot of things you have to do. So it's not so much about what company you work with or anything like that. It's whether you're a single DevRel or a 2-man team, 3-man team, 5-man team. So it just really depends.
Wow. So, do you think there are any challenges you face, in this role of a DevRel? Any challenge you ever face being a DevRel?
What are some of the biggest challenges I run into?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is obviously that there's not a single day that's like the other day. Every day it changes. That is my favorite thing, but it's also the most difficult thing, because sometimes I might be planning that, okay, I've got this great video I'm putting together. I've already written the script. I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to edit it, all that stuff. And then 100 things start getting thrown at you. This engineer needs some help on this issue. And then, your co-founder needs to meet with you on another thing. And then the marketing team needs some help with some outbound or inbound content, whatever. Suddenly you've got a bunch of PRs that you need to review on the documentation. So there's a lot of different things that are happening all at once. And the trick really is to make sure that you have the ability to go with the punches and know that sometimes you have plans, and 90% of the times your day is never going to go as planned. It's always going to change. And so, that happens all the time. And so it's my favorite thing, but it's also probably the most difficult thing for most people to handle.
Yeah. So, what are some of the most rewarding aspects of being a DevRel professional?
Oh man, okay. Seeing a developer come into the ecosystem, and you kind of maybe you saw them in the early stages where they're just kind of feeling things out, and they're kind of exploring, they're asking questions, stuff like that. And then slowly but surely, just because you kind of supported them, you've helped them out with things, suddenly they've built a couple hackathon projects, and maybe they did well, maybe they won some bounties or something like that. And then they started building more, and they started building more. And the next thing you know, they just launched this huge project, and they're raising funds and things like that. And suddenly they're getting grants and all that stuff. that's probably the most rewarding thing, is seeing somebody that started so small in your ecosystem and then just kind of scaled into this bigger image, where they went from just a community member to being somebody that we champion inside of our community, because they went from very little to nothing to building out something really, really cool, and the entire team or the ecosystem supports them.
Wow, that's really great. So, what advice would you give someone who's interested in pursuing a career in DevRel?
Okay. Don't be afraid to fall on your face. It's gonna happen all the time. As engineers, you get comfortable with things breaking. You get comfortable with your code doesn't work all the time. You're always doing error handling, things like that. That's fine. And that's easy, for engineers. And that's, it's funny because that's usually the thing that breaks people from becoming engineers. They get just frustrated and they don't want to code anymore, and they just quit and they, change careers. But it's tenfold with DevRel, because with engineers, when you're coding and you're breaking stuff and you eventually get the fix to it, that's all happening behind the scenes. Nobody is watching you fail over and over and over and over again. As a DevRel, when you're creating content, you're writing things, you're managing PRs, things happen. You're gonna make mistakes, and you have to do the best you can to make sure those mistakes don't happen. But when they do happen, which inevitably they will happen, you got to be comfortable with falling on your face. You got to be comfortable with the fact that there are people watching you. There are people watching your content. There's people reading your articles. There's people, checking out the PRs that you're reviewing, or even, your own PRs. And they're looking at your starter kits. They're reviewing your code. They're doing all of that. So you're always being looked at either by your own teammates or by people within the ecosystem or within the community. And that's terrifying, because you're always being kind of weighed and measured and everything on every single aspect of what you do. And so it's scary. So the first thing you can do is get really, really comfortable with failure.
Okay, it's something I heard about DevRel always being up to date with the latest trends. So, how do you think a DevRel can be up to date with the latest trends? Because most times, maybe as a dev, definitely you're a dev, so you have to focus on maybe coding or writing different articles. But how do devs stay ahead of different trends, always active on them?
That's the hardest thing, as a DevRel, you're constantly managing so many different things at once, and it's extremely difficult. There is, in the very beginning, you end up with a very unhealthy work-life balance. You're working way too hard. You're trying to do all these different things. You shot this bar really, really high, thinking, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. In reality, you're constantly getting derailed. You're having to do all these different things. It's extremely difficult. So the best thing you can do, honestly, is be effective at changing tasks. Because what happens a lot of times is, if I'm coding and then suddenly I'm pulled into a meeting, so that's a bit of an introverted task, and then I got to switch to this introverted task where I'm in a meeting now. The hardest part is the moment you're out of the meeting, you don't want to go back to coding. You just switched already. So then you just want to sit down, and you want to take a break, you maybe have a drink or whatever, and just chill for a second. But in reality situation, if you want to be effective, you've got to be very effective at changing tasks at succession without losing time. And that's really, really hard. The other thing too is being smart with your time. Don't waste time in meetings that probably aren't really relevant to you. That happens a lot in companies. There's times where if I'm in a marketing meeting or something like that, and one of my first questions is hey, is there anything that I need to talk about today? Do you need anything specifically from me? And then my marketing guy will say, actually, no, we don't need you today. Boom, I'm off. I'm back to coding. I'm doing whatever I need to do at that time. Try not to waste a whole lot of time in unnecessary meetings. The moment you can control your time and be effective with your time is when you become a really, really good DevRel.
But what are your thoughts on the future of DevRel? Do you think it's something that will be here for a very long time, or do you think it will just fade away?
Do you think so? Like, you're asking, is DevRel a position that you would hold for a long time, or are you talking about just the role of DevRel? Is that going to continue to exist for a long time?
I think the role of a DevRel, like, is going to continue for a long time. Do you think it's something that will be around for a long time?
So the role, okay, so it's interesting because the role has been around for a very long time, but people really didn't see it on the outside so much. So, I mean, I think Apple was one of the first people that ever really had a DevRel, a true DevRel. And now that DevRel, everybody only saw that DevRel when you actually became like an engineer that went into the ecosystem of Apple. And so, like, nobody really saw that. Now, come to, honestly, roughly about 2020 is when DevRels become a little bit more public facing. They're a little bit more on the outside. Some of them even became the face of the product. And that's really, really hard. But it's because of that I think DevRel is becoming a more and more important role each and every year. The hardest thing that will happen, though, is what is going to happen in order for DevRels to not be so much the face of the product, but kind of be like their own face and be able to really focus on helping with that product and teaching that product, because you don't want to ingrain yourself so much with the product, but you do want to make sure you're doing a really good job of educating developers in the ecosystem and bringing developers into the ecosystem through either your content, your starter kits, your articles, or anything like that. So to answer the question, yes, I think DevRel is going to be around for a very, very long time, if not one of the longest times out of many of the roles that will exist inside of any technical company.
So, do you think that any misconceptions that people have about DevRel heard of anything?
Misconceptions about DevRel, or are you asking what are some misconceptions of DevRel?
Yeah, misconceptions of DevRel.
Okay, so one of the major misconceptions of DevRel is that inside of the DevRel community, many DevRels think that this is an interesting question. So many DevRels think you don't necessarily need to do videos. That's okay. Wow. That's totally up to you. But I think doing videos is more important every single day. Now, there are teams where you can have a DevRel that their whole purpose is to do kind of the ecosystem support. They're more internal. They're not doing videos or anything like that. That's fine, but you're going to need another DevRel that does a really good job of creating technical content for the developer community and for inbound. So a big misconception is a lot of people think you don't need to get in front of the camera, and I'm sorry, but you probably do. In most cases, you probably should be comfortable with getting in front of the camera and teaching, about what your product is and teaching how to develop things with your product, doing webinars, things like that. That's becoming more and more important because the generation that we're supporting today and we're doing developer relations for, essentially, I mean, we're getting to the point where many of them are born after year 2000, which means they grew up with social media. So they know what it's like to have social media pretty much at all times. They've basically been raised with some sort of video apparatus in their hand at any time. And then COVID hit. So everybody that was in high school or in college or anything like that, they were moved from the classroom setting. And what happened? They basically had to do all of their learning through video, either through some sort of live stream, Zoom call, or even asynchronous videos on YouTube or anything like that. So all of them have spent the last 4 years learning content, whether technical or non-technical, learning things via video. So, what's going to happen now is it's more and more so every single year now where more engineers are expecting and need the support of video-based content because that's what they were educated on, is video-based content.
So I think this is the last question I want to ask, So for someone who is a graduate of DevRel University, going for it, for example, you were the first spot of DevRel University, and I'm actually the fifth cohort of DevRel University. So for someone who's like a graduate from DevRel University, how do you think he or she can gain their first role, paid role as a DevRel?
So, to understand your question, what are some of the first things you should do once you've graduated DevRel Uni?
Yeah, to gain your first paid role.
Okay. So if I were to go back and, I was graduating DevRel Uni again, the very first step I would have done is immediately network and connect with any and all of the DevRels in the ecosystem that I can possibly learn from. That is crucial. The DevRel community is probably one of the most supportive communities out of any any community in Web3. They spend a lot of time supporting each other, critiquing each other's work, helping each other out. You learn a lot from the DevRel community. So I would say, if anything, the very absolute first thing you should do is get connected with as many DevRels as humanly possible, because they know everything that's going on in the ecosystem. If you need a new DevRel job, I'm pretty sure they've got a whole list of DevRel jobs that are currently available. And if you need to learn how to do video content, there's a list of DevRels that are really good at video content. If you need to learn how to do a webinar, if you need to learn how to write technical documentation, anything like that, you can learn all of that from a very helpful member of the DevRel community. So the very, very first thing I would ever do after graduating DevRel Uni is connecting with the existing DevRel community, for sure.
Now, okay, when you say existing DevRel community, I would love to know, is it like a Twitter community, or do you mean there's a special community for your DevRels?
So a little bit of alpha. There is a crypto DevRel Telegram group.
Wow.
I'm sorry?
I didn't know.
Yeah, so this group is very exclusive, and you can only get into the group once you are actually employed as a DevRel. So they don't let anybody in. Yeah, they don't let anybody in that that is unemployed or anything like that. I mean, once you're in, and then maybe you become unemployed and you're looking for another DevRel job, it's not like you get kicked out and then you got to go back in or anything. But there is an existing Telegram group like that. It is exclusive to DevRels that are employed as DevRels. And that community is the most helpful community you could possibly, be a part of. Now, aside from that, though, going back to a little bit of that networking piece, it is totally okay to try to connect with as many DevRels as humanly possible that can possibly help you out in any way, shape, or form. Because at the end of the day, once you're out of DevRel Uni, one of the first things you can really use is either a mentor or a group of mentors that can really help you, become a really good DevRel, help you get employed. Once you're employed, then, join the DevRel, the crypto DevRel Telegram group, and then from there you can just continue to level up as a DevRel, because there's so much there's so many things that you can learn in that group. It's pretty amazing. That's my alpha.
Well, I would love to say something like, right now, though I'm not really like in a paid position, but I'm actually representing a community as a DevRel, like building a community, fostering a lot of opportunities and all, like more of like a women community called Women in DevRel. I'm trying like the head of every day. But does that qualify me of being like part of the group, or it must be a paid position?
I would argue that it's supposed to be a paid position, but I think you can slide with that. I think you can. So I'd have to look at the community or whatever, the name of the community or whatever, and I'm pretty sure they would probably let you in based on that alone. So yeah, I think that counts. Is it a Web3 community?
Yeah, it's a Web3 community, Women in DevRel.
Okay, Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. In that case, then yeah, I think that counts as long as like you actually hold the title of like DevRel of some sort in that community. Then it counts.
Okay, should I reach out to you after this meeting?
Okay. All right. Sweet.
Thank you so much. So I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for this opportunity and the interview. It's really amazing, and I've learned a whole lot of things from you. Like, I didn't mention this earlier, but Patrick was a person who told me to go into Denver University. I remember when I wanted to start when I wanted to like go into like become a driver for women in Dev, I reached out to Patrick and he advised me about a lot of things. He gave me a starter kit and he told me to just register for Denver University. It was amazing. So I'm really grateful to Patrick because he helped me in my journey. And right now, I'm pretty sure it's still going to help me for a lot of journeys I have like in store right now, even after Denver University. So when I even reached out to him, I was so amazed when he said yes. It was so amazing. It was an amazing thing. So thank you so much, Patrick. You're an amazing person. You're an amazing Delver. And I really appreciate the fact that even as you're busy with our community, you still made time to talk to me. I'm so grateful to that. Like, you're one of my top
Of course.
mentors right now. I look up to you this week. Thank you
Well,
so
no,
much,
no.
Patrick.
Honestly, it's if for anybody else, if you show that you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to give it a shot and everything, then it's important for me to give you the opportunity to be able to learn something, as long as like I can see that what I'm teaching is somehow being done or reflects somehow, then it just shows me that, okay, this is somebody that's worth teaching. So by all means, you've always done that. So, more hats off to you than to me, really, because you've always, continued to try to execute and everything with any advice I give you. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much. And I'm pretty sure the women of my community will be so proud of me right now because it's not really easy. Like, I represent them and something that, like, it's a great joy to me. Like, thank you so much once more. I'm grateful. And thank you for the time and every other thing. Thank you, Patrick.
No
Bye.
problem. Take care.
Bye.